I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up. I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement. I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement. Everything I do so instinctive.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, degenerate sleuths of the night. We gather to boldly go where others have refused. Welcome to the DT show, you salty mofos.
A man accused of killing 4 college students is behind bars, and he has ties to northeastern and central Pennsylvania. State police say 28-year-old Brian Koberger was arrested this morning at a home in Chestnut Hill Township.
I can't find any case law that would support that idea. That somehow a warrant would be needed for DNA left at a crime scene.
We are expecting to learn more about the allegations against the girlfriend of a Boston police officer who was found unresponsive in the snow Saturday morning. I-Team sources say Karen Reed was in a relationship with John O'Keefe. She's facing charges including motor vehicle homicide and manslaughter.
So, the Commonwealth just provided the court with information that causes me grave concern. The implications of that information may have profound effects on this defense and defense counsel.
So, get your popcorn ready and your choice of drink. Get your butt on your seat. Like, comment, and subscribe for a treat. Here we go. It's time for the show. The Drunk Turkey Show.
How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to the DT show. Hope everybody's having a good night. It's finally Friday, right? So going into the weekend, hope everybody's being safe and everybody's going to have a good time tonight. I have a good show planned out for you guys. We got a great guest coming on board. But before we bring on our guest, I want to remind you guys to hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, ring that notification bell. You guys know what to do. Without further ado, we're going to talk about a new case, one that's fairly new to me. It's a sheriff out there in Kentucky in Letcher County, Shawn Mickey Stines, was arrested and charged for the murder of District Judge Kevin Mullins after Stines allegedly, and I say allegedly loosely because there's an audio and video of him. Well, let me revise that. There's video of him taking the life of Judge Mullins, but allegedly shot him multiple times in his chamber after reported argument. And so to kind of get us refreshed and up to speed on the case, we have a good friend of the channel of the show, Elizabeth from Hillbilly Crime. Welcome to the channel. How's it going, Elizabeth?
Thanks for having me. We're excited to be here tonight.
I'm excited to have you. We have a common mod in the live chat. I wonder where she's at tonight. But Extreme Blonde, I want to say thank you for introducing us, and I hope you're having a good night. And Sirius as well.
Yes, I saw them in the chat. They're here.
That's great. That's great. So tell me a little bit about yourself. How did you? I hear you're kind of local to this crime. Is that correct?
Yeah. So I live in Letcher County. I grew up in this area. I'm actually originally from a county over. This area was kind of devastated. Not kinda. It was absolutely devastated by the opioid crisis many years ago. And all the counties were done pretty much the same way. Eastern Kentucky was hit pretty hard. So it doesn't really matter what county you're from. I think every family in Eastern Kentucky has been affected by it in one way or the other. But across the mountain was where those were my old stomping grounds. That's where I did all my trouble. That's where I got in all my trouble at, was over there. And I kind of made my way over this way And got into treatment. After I got into treatment, I'm no different than anybody else. I got sucked into that devastation too. And about 15 years of my life was spent on the wrong side of the law. And once I got into treatment, well, let me kind of back up a little bit. I don't know if you are familiar with addiction, but at the beginning of this crisis, it seems like the only form of treatment that was acceptable was abstinence. Abstinence only. That's the only form of recovery that was, really accepted by anybody. Even in the AA rooms and NA rooms, if you were in medically assisted treatment, which was, like Suboxone or methadone, something like that, if you go into those rooms, let me say my experience. Back in the day, you really weren't welcome because everybody looked at you like you were trading one drug for another. Your recovery was not real. It wasn't acceptable. The stigma that came with Suboxone or methadone medically assisted treatment was just really, really rough. I went to rehab several times, completed them all, did really well, but you have to leave that controlled environment at some time and go back to where you came from. And that's when the trouble hits, abstinence only has a very, very low success rate long term. And so I ended up in Suboxone about 2012, and honey, that was all she wrote. It changed my life absolutely 180 degrees. I went from living in the gutter, not being able to function. Mental illness is, a big issue that I think goes hand in hand with addiction. I struggle with bipolar and all that good, crazy stuff. And Suboxone really stabilized my mood swings, and it stabilized my mind and my emotions. And I thought, okay, well, now that I'm doing pretty good, I'm going to go back to school. And somebody told me that I needed to study what I knew the most about. And I said, well, I know the most about the criminal justice system from the inside out. And they said, it was my psychology professor, and he said, well, then you need to study that. And I said, well, okay, I will. So I went to school, and I graduated magna cum laude with my bachelor's degree in criminal justice, and I went to graduate school and got my master's degree in juvenile justice policy and leadership. And I took one in my law enforcement. To get my law enforcement degree, I had to take an exam for competence. It's a competency exam, and it was the NOCTI exam. It was a 3-hour exam, and you had to pass it to graduate. Well, I got the highest ever recorded national score at the time. 97.4 on that 3-hour exam. And man, I was really, really proud of that. Now, I don't know if anybody's ever beat it since, but at the time it was the highest ever recorded score.
That's amazing. Congratulations.
No, man.
That is awesome.
Well, this channel, just to kind of make a longer story kind of condensed, I was blacklisted from the same bunch that this sheriff and the judge, I live in this county. I was blacklisted because of Suboxone is my best guess. And I was a very big advocate for it, and nobody wanted to hear any of that at the time. And so I ended up just having to move on. I had to let it all go. It didn't matter how much work I had put into, my education. It didn't matter. I had to work. I had to make a living, right?
Mhm.
So I ended up getting my insurance license, and I did very well in insurance for a few years. And I got up one morning and my stuff didn't work. My logins and stuff didn't work. I'd gotten laid off, and I
Oh, no.
started this channel. It was God's timing, honey. I had been preparing for a couple of years to start my channel, but it was just going to be on true crime. I was a true crimer, and I
Mhm.
kept watching all these people like your channel, and I would be watching them, and I'd think, man, I can do that. I can do what they're doing. I
Yeah.
know, and I know a lot more about it than a lot of the people I was watching. And so I started it, and the best advice I ever got or I ever took was your first 50 videos are gonna suck, but you just got to get them up, and it'll come with practice. And it
Yeah.
has. It has. And
Yeah.
the rest is history. 6 days later, the sheriff shot the judge, and my channel took off.
Wow. That was that close to when this happened.
Yep, I started my channel 6 days before he shot him.
Wow. Well, I guess I guess I could, for those that are watching on your channel, Hillbilly Crime, I'm DT, or the Drunk Turkey Show. A little bit about where I came from, background. Myself, Big Blue, and Jaime, we used to have a podcast together, and we talked about other things like government conspiracies, aliens, UFOs, things of that nature. And when Richard Allen got arrested, it was a case that kind of interested me a little bit. I wasn't well versed in it, but I knew a little bit of the details. And I told the guys, I was like, hey, let's talk about this. I used to be in law enforcement. Big Blue was, he's in the medical field, and Jaime was fascinated by like serial killer type podcasts and things like that. So he was well versed in that. And we began to talk about it, and we started to grow a following. We had probably about 200 subscribers when Richard Allen got arrested in October. That first month, I think we jumped up like 3,000. And then Brian Koberger, the Idaho 4 occurred, the Idaho murders. And we just started talking about that, and our channel blew up. We've talked with Steve Gonsalves. We've talked with Christy Gonsalves, and numerous contacts within in and out of that case. And we covered it extensively. We just passed 52,400 subscribers. So I want to say thank you guys for subbing up. I appreciate it.
Congratulations. That's awesome.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mhm.
And this case here with Sheriff Shawn Mickey Stines. So a little bit of backstory about him. So I'm not familiar too much with the case. I know a little bit. I looked into some of it. I've looked into the timeline and stuff. So how long had Sheriff Shawn Mickey Stines been a sheriff there in Letcher County?
So a very interesting backstory to them. These two have been co-workers for a very long time. So Judge Mullins was an assistant county attorney way back in the day. 2009, he was appointed. He filled a vacant judge seat. So we had a judge die, and our governor appointed him to the district judge position. Mickey was already working as the district judge bailiff, or the district court bailiff at the time whenever Mullins was appointed. So Mickey worked as Judge Mullins's bailiff until 2018. So that was about 10 years. They worked in the same courtroom side by side. And then Mickey decided he was going to run for sheriff in 2018. So he ran in the election and he won. A little neat piece of information is Judge Mullins did not, from what we understand, Judge Mullins did not, which we don't know who he voted for, but he did not campaign for Mickey.
He didn't endorse him?
yet from what we've been told, especially since the shooting has happened, Mickey's attorney has come out and said that they were not friends. People have just assumed that they were, great friends all these years. And apparently that's not exactly true. They were co-workers. That doesn't exactly make you friends.
Right. Yeah. Puts a little bit more context into this as to, a little bit more into the scenario. Now, so he was the acting sheriff for how many years before before the incident occurred?
2018 was when he was elected in.
Okay. And since the shooting, there's been a lot of women to have come out to have made accusations against the judge and also against a lot of the justice system out there. What was the first piece of information that came out?
So Mickey actually got a phone call one day from a reporter out of Lexington, Kentucky. And they had asked him for a comment on the civil suit that had just been filed against him and one of his deputies, Ben Fields, and the ankle monitor company that they used for their house arrest program. The civil suit that was filed was on behalf of two women, Sabrina Adkins and Jennifer Hill. Both of them were accusing Ben Fields of coercing sex and sexual favors out of them for their freedom, basically. He was trading Jennifer Hill in one of her recorded statements to the Attorney General's investigator. She says that the first time she was let out on house arrest, Ben proposed to her and told her, hey, if you can't never afford the fee for your ankle monitor, we can work something out. And she was like, well, no, thank you. My husband can pay for my ankle monitor, thanks anyway, and so her husband pays the fee. They go home. Later that night, Ben Fields is out there to arrest her and took her back to jail. And she stayed in jail for 3 months. She was never allowed back out at that time. She gets out of jail. She goes on. A year later, she gets arrested for something completely different. She comes to jail. Judge Mullins puts her back out on house arrest. And this time when Ben says, hey, we can work something out, she knew not to turn him down, because if she said no again, she was going to end up back in jail. So this time she felt like she was, she had to do what he wanted her to do. Sabrina, it was in the same boat, but on the other side of that coin, you also have, these are active users at the time. I've spoke to Sabrina and she said, at the time I thought I had the best of all, the best thing since sliced bread going on. He was telling her where all the best dope was. He was telling her where all the roadblocks were and what sides of the county that the police were on, because he knew she was driving without a license. So he would kind of, give her the information. He told her who was narking, so who the informants were. He told her those kinds of details, so told her who to stay away from so she didn't get caught up in stuff, but that lawsuit is really relevant to the shooting, because 3 days before the shooting happened, Mickey had to sit for a deposition in that lawsuit. And so it was people kind of felt like, which I was one of them, I feel like that lawsuit, the pressure surrounding those depositions, the investigation into all of that, I think it had a lot of people threatening Mickey to keep his mouth shut. I think that there was a whole lot of people that were in fear of him exposing them and their crimes.
Interesting. So is there evidence that Mickey was a part of this as well?
There is no evidence of it that we have seen. I've heard that Mickey had. I think that we're talking about two completely different levels of misconduct, too. Though I don't think Mickey was in to the level that some of these other actors were. I think Mickey was probably more on the outside, and I think he probably witnessed a lot. I think that he probably has his own guilt. I think he's guilty of his own things. I just don't know if he's necessarily guilty of the same kinds of atrocities.
Do you think he was aware of what was going on?
Oh yeah, definitely. Definitely. I don't think anybody could look us in the face, look us in the eye, and tell us with a straight face that they didn't know what was going on.
So I've watched some video and surveillance of him that day. He's obviously very nervous throughout that entire time, leading up to even before he starts making the phone calls or the FaceTime calls. Obviously, I think a little bit late throughout that time frame, one of the calls he makes is to his daughter. What happened, or what is alleged to have happened with his daughter?
So I think that just because of the reputation that Judge Mullins had, I think that was why the first rumor or the first thing that people jumped to was that, the judge was messing with Mickey's daughter. I don't think that's true. I think they've all come out and said no, like the whole family, everybody involved has come out and said, no, that's not true. But I think that just because of the reputation, if you notice, if you watched those videos, nobody ran to the judge and was giving him any kind of aid. It's kind of like that one court security guy. He just walks right on past him and he's on the phone, just looks at him, walks right on past. Nobody was in a big hurry outside. And those were 9 shots that were shot. I've heard people say, oh, well, maybe they didn't hear it. Maybe one, maybe you wouldn't necessarily think it was a gun, but 9?
Yeah. So do we know, so was his daughter's phone number on the judge's cell phone?
It wasn't saved on the phone as a contact, from what I understand. It was only on his phone because Mickey dialed it, sitting there.
Okay.
Yeah.
He seemed kind of confused afterwards. Now, I don't know if it's an act. I question it. I'm not a doctor, so I can't say one way or the other. But one of the things that he was saying was like the Miranda warning. He was pretending, or at least in that moment, not knowing. He did not know what a Miranda warning was. For a sheriff, that's a weird thing not to know. Has he had any, has he tried to use insanity as some sort of means of trying to plead out? Or what, has he pled yet? Where are we on the case?
No. So they ordered a mental health evaluation on Mickey. It was really kind of strange the way that his lawyers did that. They did not ask for a competency hearing. They were not asking, or evaluation. They were not asking for anyone to find out if he was competent to stand trial. Like now, they were trying to find out. They wanted the evaluation to because they were arguing, what's it called? Extreme emotional disturbance
Okay.
at the time. So that's what they're arguing. That's what the defense is. It's a mental health defense. And they're saying, that he had encephalitis, which they're saying he got from a tick or a mosquito. It's called some kind of an encephalitis. I don't know. That's the first I've ever heard about that, but they're saying that it causes some kind of spells. That was discussed in some of the depositions and stuff, was that Mickey took these spells whenever the encephalitis was flaring up.
So, yeah. Has this been proven that that's what he has? He had this?
I don't know. I mean, yeah, I guess they've proved that he's got it, I guess. It must be in his medical records or something, I'm assuming. But
Interesting.
yeah, they're not using that as a big, piece, but they have brought it up. So,
I mean, just kind of, if I was in his shoes, I would be using it.
yeah, they better use anything they can.
You know what I'm saying? Like I'd be saying, yeah, the tick bit me, radioactive spider bit me, and I can touch the walls and it's sticky. I mean, I would say anything I could.
Yeah. Now, what state are you in?
I'm in Texas.
You're in Texas. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Now, Kentucky apparently has a funky thing where, most states, a defense team is allowed to request a change of venue for their client. In Kentucky, from what I understand, the prosecution has they're allowed, like it's some kind of like a special thing that Kentucky has for the prosecutors, that they can request a change of venue for a case. Ned Pillersdorf was an attorney that has kind of done the media rounds. He was representing this civil suit against Mickey and Ben and all of them. Well, the other night we had some big information. She fired him, so he's no longer on the case. But he had told in several interviews about this special thing that Kentucky has where prosecutors can request this change of venue. And he predicted this. He said that he thought that there was no way this trial would stay in Letcher County. But I had been told by some other attorneys that if it was going to be moved, they would have had to have put in for a change of venue a long time ago. It was way too late. But no, it ain't, because here recently, whenever they started filing all these motions, the last time that they did, they also filed a change of venue for this case.
Interesting. You think it'll go?
I actually think that it will. I think that they will do everything that the prosecution asks.
Where do you think it'll go to?
Bowling Green. I think it'll end up all the way on the other side of the state, because that's where the judge is from.
Okay. There you go.
They got a special judge on it.
Yeah. And so if this tick thing is real and people are saying it is real and whatnot, I wonder how that's going to affect this case. And I mean, could it be just that somebody kind of went, had some kind of episode and it just so happened to uncover this extremely horrendous situation that's going on?
I don't think so. I think it's just they're throwing spaghetti at the wall and seeing what'll stick.
Yeah.
Hoping it'll stick.
So is there anything else that shows a premeditation outside of that day? Has law enforcement found anything in his text messages and his locations? Had he been stalking? Had he been following the judge? Is there anything there?
No, we don't know anything to that
Okay.
effect yet. They haven't, released any kind of discovery as far as that goes. But there had been several reports that Mickey had been acting very, very strange. And I'll just be honest with you. I am in recovery about 15 years now, and, mine was from opioids.
Hmm.
I never did get into the meth and the stuff that's going around now,
Right.
but I think most of us have went to the grocery store, or you've been to the dollar store or the gas station, and you've seen somebody on it.
Hmm.
You have seen, you have witnessed this behavior. Like I said, there's not a family in Eastern Kentucky that's not been affected by this, by substance abuse. And the drugs change over time. They just go from one thing to the next, to the next, to the next.
Right.
And this is what we've been dealing with, is meth, for the last 15 years. Now, if you watched Mickey after that shooting,
Yeah.
that was the first thing I thought of. I was like, man, somebody's dosed him. Somebody, he has he's higher than a cat. That's what
Yeah.
I thought. And I got yelled at so bad over that, because people were like, Mickey was so against drugs. He was so against it.
Yeah.
Well, does that mean that he couldn't have been accidentally exposed to it or something? We have seen this stuff that they've got nowadays. It is destroying their brains. Like, you can do it one time, never do it again, but you're damaged.
Yeah.
And even though you're not doing it no more, the damage is already done. You're not going back to who you were before you put that poison in your body. I mean, it's just warping the brain. Now, could that be a possibility? Could he have accidentally gotten exposed to something? We're not talking about a lot of trained law enforcement here. I think, if anything, we've learned how little trained or no training a lot of these people, are in our law enforcement locally.
Yeah.
Would it be a hard stretch of the imagination to think somebody wouldn't have properly handled something that they have confiscated? I mean, they're taking these drugs off the street left and right. And one thing that they love to do is lay it all out on a table or their desk or the hood of their cruiser, and then take a big picture of it and they post it on Facebook. All the money, the drugs, the guns, whatever.
I mean, maybe, but when you have corruption at the top level, I wouldn't be surprised if there's a slippery slope of that type of corruption, and it leads on to other things. So you have these acts that are being done against these, young ladies, and being, taken advantage of. I can see where other forms of crime can also be going on and being slid away. I mean, his action and his behavior after the fact, in my opinion, was pretty telling. He acted like he was afraid of the officers around him. So he must have some sort of, in my opinion, the first thing that came to my mind is that he's aware of other officers involved in activity that was outside of their job. Whether it's related to potentially what he's doing, if he's on drugs, I can't say one way or another. But if he was on drugs, maybe he knew some of the other officers that were partaking in some of that activity. He was aware of what Judge Mullins was doing. Maybe he was aware of some of the other officers that were aware of that as well. And if there's any other crimes that are being occurring. And so he did seem like he was afraid. Sirius comes in saying, from one Kentucky girl to another, thank you for your work on this case, and I admire your courage and dedication to life. Extreme Blonde introduced me to you, and I am so grateful for that. Thank you, Sirius. And Pam on your channel dropped in with $19.99. And then Barbara Hall asks, what about the girl that did that interview that worked in the police station? She says she saw something. What is it that she saw, and what was the situation surrounding that?
One of the girls, Sarah, she had done an interview, and she was a guard at the jail for a few months. I think she only worked there for a few months. But the interview that she did, she had reported that she had several times been invited, to like go out with them after work or, whatever. And she had every time turned them down. She wasn't doing it. Well, she says that she saw female guards taking male inmates into the closet. They had a closet there that I reckon a lot of the sexual activity was taking place in. There was also a male, a guy that was in drug court, and he reached out to me as well. And we were going to do a big interview with him. He was in the sex trade there. He was actually, he has a whole story on his own, how he was pulled into, I guess, how do you say it? So there's an attorney, a very, very popular attorney. He's what I call the fixer of the county, the highest priced attorney in the area. And he was married to a young lady, and he was a perv. I mean, he still is. He's a perv. But he liked to exhibition, I guess, and he would pay people and do it just as a swinger, I guess. Allegedly, they would all have sex with his wife, and while he watched, I could just go on and on and on and on, story after story after story after story. The victims of this specific circle, just I can't even tell you how many there are that have been sucked into that. Alcohol, there's a bar in town, and so what do people do? They go to the bar, especially in a one-horse town. It's got one street light,
Right.
They go to the bar on the weekends. Well, there was a lot of people that would end up leaving from the bar and going back to their house, and if anybody went back to the house, it's just, and this has been going on decades. Like these parties have been going on for a long time. Well, anyway, this attorney, from what we've been told by several people, it's not just one, it's several. He says that when he was in drug court, he was made pretty much to go have sex with this guy's wife. And at the time they were probably using themselves, drinking with them, and they probably thought they were having a good time, but anytime that he said that then whenever he tried to, start doing life right, and he wanted to stop seeing her and not be part of it no more, he was revoked and thrown back in jail. He said that she would show up, that the wife, was kind of obsessed with him, and because he was a real good looking young guy, and he said she would show up to his court dates, and her husband is this big fixer attorney. I mean, could you imagine just how weird. Yeah, imagine how many people were affected by all this. I mean, you've got a judge having girls being pulled into his chambers to give him favors to throw charges away. You end up with this jail in the basement now they've got rehab and ARC, the treatment center, this big rehab center that they pulled into it. And so once they started sending everybody to rehab, then they turned this jail basically into a sex dungeon, like, oh, well, how many new people got arrested last night? Well, we got 5 beds we got to fill. Won't you go down to the jail and see how many of them fit that criteria? What we're talking about is human trafficking. We're talking about sex trafficking. And, they all think that they're just real smart. They found a way to get all this federal grant money. No, you found a way to put yourself in prison on RICO charges is what y'all have done.
Is outside of this case with Sheriff Stines, is anybody else being charged with their involvement in anything?
There ain't a soul. So when Ben Fields, whenever that civil case got filed, when it first got filed, it took that civil case being filed before the Attorney General's office would even look at Ben Fields in a criminal investigation. And I think that the attorneys who filed that civil suit, I think it was inside baseball every step of the way. I think that they controlled that civil suit from the inside. So the judge was never named in that civil suit, even though it was his chambers that Ben Fields was committing these sex acts in. The jailer was not named. Ben's wife was not named. There were several other people that should have been named in that civil suit, and there were a whole lot of things in there that was mistakes or that was wrong. Her lawyers should have caught these things. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, this is insane. How big is Letcher County? What's the population there?
22,000.
I mean, that's not incredibly small, but that's not large either. This is insane. This is insane that I didn't know that things got down like that out there in Kentucky. It's
it is. Well, 2 hours away from here. You can't make this stuff up, honey. You absolutely cannot make this stuff up. The DEA was working. They had you might as well call him a serial killer on their, they used him as an informant, and they had gotten a tip in 2020 that he had a torture chamber in the upstairs of one of his outbuildings. Now they were very wealthy people. They lived in these big mansions, and he had a big white outbuilding out to the side, and it had a jail cell in the upstairs of it, an actual jail cell. And somebody had taken a picture of a woman trapped in that jail cell, and they sent it to the cops through a tip line that they did it. That was in 2020. Well, they show up in 2025 last month for a welfare check, and they find, you wouldn't believe all the things that they found. They've got him charged with all kinds of things as of right now. I'm not really too sure where they're at this specific minute, but it makes me think you've got somebody who's got a torture chamber, a jail cell out in, back in the woods where you could scream your lungs out. Ain't nobody gonna hear you.
right.
It's kind of scary. There's a lot of missing people from around here.
Yeah, it seems that way, and it seems pretty scary. It seems kind of crazy out there. I actually looked at some property out there in Kentucky one time, and it didn't work out. I'm not too disappointed anymore. So, with this case here, it appears, like you mentioned, that they might get it moved. The area is fairly small, so I reckon the amount of publicity, everybody knows about this case there. So I wouldn't be surprised if it gets moved as well. I guess outside of the tick thing, what else is the sheriff arguing on in his favor? Has he put in a plea yet? Has he pled not guilty?
Oh, yeah, they definitely pled not guilty at the
Okay.
very get-go. Um, well, now, earlier that day, you see the video of them in the chambers just
Yeah.
hanging out, chit-chatting, and then they leave. They have lunch, and then he leaves with the rehab man, the preacher man. He's the one who's sitting up in the window
Okay.
during the chambers. Um, Now, he's a preacher. I say that very loosely. Um, he, I'll just keep my mouth shut on that, and I'll just move on.
Okay.
uh, the rehab that he worked for was called ARC. Um, Addiction Recovery Care, I think was the name of it. In 2023, the FBI opened a Medicaid fraud investigation into them. Now, if you remember kind of me giving you my story, nobody
Mhm.
around here wanted to hear anything about Suboxone. Nobody around here wanted to hear anything about medically assisted treatment. It was abstinence only. That was it.
Right.
Well, the federal government changed a few things several years ago. And if you did not offer a MAT program, you didn't get access to federal monies anymore. So all of these doctors who wouldn't risk their precious reputations writing anybody Suboxone, now all of a sudden they have to open and include medically assisted treatment into their treatment repertoire.
Mhm.
And so they really did not want to do it, but they had to. And now the preacher man is, I guess, I don't know. I don't know what his treatment option was, but I know how they treated me being on Suboxone. I was a leper, a pariah that was not welcome in the same room as
Hmm.
they were. And um but the Suboxone programs, they found out that they were able to bring in all of this Medicaid money. So they decided that they were going to open or start implementing peer support specialists. Well, all that is somebody like us who've been an addict, and they're making us like a peer counselor, but they figured out how to get them paid
Mhm.
using Medicaid money. But here's what they're doing. As a peer support specialist, it costs $600 just to get your certification. Well, what recovering addict do you know that's got $600 to go buy their certification? But I don't know any. So the only way people are really able to get that is if they get hired by a place. The place pays for the certification. They send them to training. They pay for it, but they hire them, say, for $10, $12 an hour, and then they bill Medicaid, say $25 or $30 an hour, and they get the rest of it as administrative costs, administrative fees, you know. And that peer support specialist, the one that's going to do the work, they're
Mhm.
getting paid 10 or 12. And the people
Wow.
who hired them are the ones who say who can be a peer support and who can't, right? That's
Yeah.
not fair. You're stacking the deck
Yeah.
in every way. They went as far as that, these rehabs, um, forever, they've always made everybody go and get on food stamps, and then they use those people's food stamps to feed everybody for the month that they're there or however long that they're there. That's been a long standing practice that they've done. Well, ARC has been accused of taking everybody's food stamps, going to Walmart, buying Monsters and Kit Kats and just all this junk food, bringing it back to the facility, and used to where your family could bring you shampoo and towels and stuff, deodorant and stuff like that while you were there. No, Art figured out a way to maximize every opportunity. So now nobody's allowed to bring anything outside in. You have to buy it from our in-house store. So they took all these Kit Kats, Monsters, all this stuff that they used their food stamps with, put it in their store, and marked it up by 10, so.
That's insane.
$10 Kit Kat or Monster that they just bought with somebody's food stamps. They're not allowed to do that.
No, that's insane. And I'm hoping this is being investigated.
Me too.
That doesn't sound very confident that that's what's going on.
Well, this is what I have come up with. If we cannot get a proper court of law, honey, we are going to have a proper court of public opinion.
I don't disagree there. 100%. Yeah, I think you're absolutely right there. And I can't imagine. What's the confidence like in the in the sheriff, the current sheriff, the department there, the current judges of the county from the population right now? How is what's the confidence level?
Confidence level? I don't know. They're very high confidence. We have some growing to do, like we are going to have a come to Jesus moment as a community on election day is what we're going to have to do. And we're going to have to start voting these people out of office one by one.
Wow.
That's the only way. That is the only way. And keep the pressure on them. If you don't want blasted on hillbilly crime, keep your zipper up. Keep your pants on. Don't be running out into the parking lot with your brother's wife, jumping in the back seat, smooching around, and then think that if somebody gets it on camera that we ain't going to show it.
That sounds oddly specific. I'm just saying. But yeah, you probably shouldn't be doing that if you are. Definitely not. So like with the case here, is there like I know you mentioned there's one lawsuit, but has anybody else added on to it? Has this turned into a bigger thing since the beginning of this? Are there more ladies coming forward?
There was a third that was unnamed. We heard about that at the very beginning, like right after the shooting happened. We heard that there were two that were named, one that was unnamed. Now, Jennifer Hill is no longer with us. She overdosed and died.
Oh, no.
And it was under very suspicious circumstances. As far as I'm concerned, it looks to me like she was given a hot shot. Absolutely 100%. Now, I was told that they were investigating, but
Right.
she's been gone for quite some time and we ain't heard one thing about it. And even if she was hot shotted, I don't think they would do a damn thing about it. I don't think they would ever even tell it if they did know. Anyway, so she was in the lawsuit. Here, just maybe a month or two ago, the judge ruled and dismissed her claim from the lawsuit. So, because of statute of limitations, her paperwork and her statement saying when it first started happening was a whole year after the affidavit of her boyfriend. So her boyfriend writes an affidavit and puts his date a whole year ahead of hers, which the judge then went started the statute of limitations by his date on his affidavit. So statute of limitations on hers kicked it out. And so even though she's dead, her estate was still in the suit. But now it's not. It's gone. And Sabrina her claim barely survived.
Now there's the civil aspect of this. Is there not a criminal investigation into Fields?
There was this civil suit was what started it. So the lawyer who filed this civil suit, he goes to the state attorney's office and says, hey, this is what we've got going on down here. And he even said on interviews, he was like, usually whenever I go to the attorney general's office to ask them to help me in something like this, he said, usually they tell me to kick rocks. They ain't helping me do nothing. He said, but with this one, he said it was kind of strange. They were all about it. They jumped right in on it, which is also very suspicious, right?
Yeah.
They go down. He sends. Now, our attorney general's office has a sex trafficking task force. Never used them. Never, not one time. They send Detective Matt Easter down to interview these women. And the entire time from the word go, from the introduction, he frames that narrative every bit. He interrogates these women. He makes them, oh, you mean you saw an opportunity? Oh, okay. So he starts flirting with you and you saw the opportunity to not pay for your ankle monitor. Oh, okay. Have you listened to these? I'll send them to you if you haven't.
I have not. That's his approach.
Yes. Oh, it's outrageous. Like I can't even sit through them all without like scream. I have to stop the video and have a meltdown.
So
It's
his
unbelievable.
approach is to blame the victim.
It should be criminal. No, what he did was tampering.
Yeah.
He did was tampering, and he should be brought up on charges absolutely as an investigator. I'll send it out to you, and I can tell you right now, I hope you listen to him because I really want to hear what you have to say about it.
Yeah. Send them to me. I'm interested in hearing them because that's wild.
Yes,
That's wild.
and then he goes and interviews Ben. And the entire time he's talking to him, he's like, hey, buddy, man, I've done it too, dude. I've been there, man. I'm a total screw up. You don't even want to know what all I've done. I mean, the way that he then talks to Ben is just shocking. It's unbelievable.
Well, I mean, I have to listen to it, but there is a tactic.
Technique.
What's that?
The Reed technique.
Right. Well, yeah, there's the there's a tactic there where you try to get buddy with the person. Let them loosen up, let them think that you're on their side.
Mm-hmm.
Those type of things. It's more common than not, especially if you're trying to get them to admit to something. Like, to me, that kind of sounds like you're going down that road. Like, I've done some stupid stuff. What stupid stuff have you done?
Wait till you listen to it. And
I want to listen to it. I want to listen. So what about his report? Is there like a report or an affidavit that they've written as a supplement to it?
This is all over. Yeah, this is all over. Honey, he served 6 months in jail, and he got to serve his 6 months right there at Letcher County Jail, where his wife was the supervising deputy. They put him in a drunk tank by himself. They brought in a real bed mattress for him to sleep on, and they brought him a big screen TV, and they left him. He had his cigarettes up at the station where he could smoke anytime he wanted to. He was immediately made a trustee as soon as he came in, and his wife could go in there and lay down and sleep with him if she wanted to.
And this happened when? Like,
At the beginning of 2024, he started serving
this
his
is
sentence in
insane.
January, and he served 6 months. Now, I have been very critical because I think that everything that they did was a tactic, or well, that's the wrong word. I think that it was planned and perfectly executed to get Ben to confess and plead guilty. And as long as you give us Ben, we'll make sure this investigation doesn't go any further.
Mm-hmm.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And it
Yeah.
was just done. You give us
The
Ben,
fall guy.
Ben keeps his mouth shut, and we won't name anybody else in the lawsuit. And see, Mickey Stines, I think that they all tried their best just to let Ben be the fall guy, but it also then pulled in Mickey. And now here's another big twist to it that just doesn't make any sense, because they would have already knew what they were doing. So Mickey, I think, was already planning on retiring, and they were going to put our new sheriff in his spot. They weren't planning on Mickey shooting the judge, of course, but after he shoots the judge, they pull Mickey out of this lawsuit and replace him with the new judge, because here's your son, here's you another son. They did not name Mickey in his individual capacity. They only named him in his official capacity. So what's that mean? That means that they can replace him, especially once he's been replaced as sheriff. They can replace him in the lawsuit with the new sheriff, and which they did. So now Mickey is not even in this lawsuit anymore. The new sheriff is.
So that means he wasn't really like a part of the actions of what was happening. He was more of an association, or because he was in charge of them.
What the hell are they threatening him for? If this was, see, I was very surprised when they switched him with the new sheriff. Well, then I went, if it's just my own ignorance, it's just because I hadn't heard of it no more. Before I go digging around and Googling. Well, it's something that they do all the time. I'm not a lawyer, but all these people are lawyers. They all knew that this was going to happen. They all knew that this was a possibility, like, I don't see how they didn't plan for this, right?
Right.
I mean, it just makes it's common sense. Absolute common sense that this is what would have happened, right? That they would, well, we're not going to name him in his individual capacity, so that way you can then replace him. I mean, it just makes sense to me.
I didn't know that all that had ended already. I thought that was. See, I'm very, very new to this.
That's okay.
Obviously, I'm very new to the case, and so I'm kind of learning as I'm going. And so, yeah, what you're saying makes sense. Especially about having somebody as a fall guy with a bunch of privileges, like he did. Somebody that would be willing to maybe even fall on the sword, so to speak, given the situation that they were in. What is he doing now?
Oh, best question ever. So after he gets out of jail, his wife gets a promotion, and she gets a big job in Judge Mullins's courtroom, working as the court designated worker with juveniles. So she goes from having a county job with, BS pay to getting a good state job with benefits. And if they're married, so I'm sure he's probably right there on her benefits with her. He'll probably never have to work again.
Yeah, sounds like a payoff. Sounds like a payoff to me.
And not one person ever even addressed what happened. Like our mayor, or Whitesburg's mayor, the judge executive, nobody ever even addressed. No, I don't think people really even knew what had even happened. I don't think that it was really publicized big time. A lot of people, it just flew right under the radar. You know, a lot of people don't read the newspaper, and especially if it's just in there one time, right?
Yeah.
And none of this was known, really known, widely known, until Mickey shot Kevin. That brought all this out.
So do you think, what do you think the local media's role? You think they had any idea? You think they were covering?
Well, from what we've been told, our former prosecutor, Edison Banks, he passed away like in November of last year. He was sick for several years before he passed away, and he had a lot of home health aides that came out and stuff. And he allegedly told two of his home health aides that Judge Mullins, the newspaper man, and a couple other people would go down into the jail and into the jailer's office and have these sessions where they would just go down there and watch the girls' cells on the security cameras. I've had several people tell me that, even former employees of the jail, that they would go in and they always knew when the judge had been down there on these peeping Tom rounds, because they would go in and the TV would be changed onto the women's cells specifically.
Oh, wow.
We're talking about some really, really bad stuff that was happening for a long time that they were all really proud of. This stuff was widely known. I mean, it was secreted, it was on the down low, but a lot of people knew about this stuff. There have been rumors about the judge's chambers for 15 years.
Wow. 15 years.
Oh, yeah. Longer than that, because it's been going on since before Judge Mullins.
Really?
Judge Mullins was just the last in line, in a long line.
And who's in charge now? Who took over for Judge Mullins?
The one that they replaced him with, his name is Nick Whitaker, and he's actually, I think, probably one of the best options that we had. Nick, I know him. I know his family. I know his wife. Comes from a great family, and he used to be a probation officer. He worked in several different areas. He worked in the PVA office. He just went to law school like 5 years ago, and he's my age. I'm almost 50. He's around my age. Just went to law school a few years ago and got his degree, and he was working as an assistant county and Commonwealth attorney, here and there. And then he got appointed to this job, and I'm glad. I'm glad it was Nick Whitaker. I never, all the years that we've all lived here, our kids all play ball. My kids play ball. Their kids all play ball. So, and they're all about the same age. So we've kind of, the other parents around the schools. And I've never, ever heard the first time of, Nick's, doing this, and this. No, he's a good family man. They're at home. His wife's at home making crafts and, baking cakes and cookies, and they're just amazing people all the way around. So I think we're on the positive.
The up and up, going up in the right direction. Yeah. And who replaced the sheriff? Are you confident in that person's? I didn't look so confident.
Well, the guy that they replaced him with was a school resource officer. His name's Billy Jones. And I mean, I don't have anything against him, but he came out here to my house not long ago and served me with my divorce papers. That was the first time I'd ever talked to him. And he was so soft spoken. And I couldn't imagine him ever disciplining somebody. Like, he just seems very, very, not confrontational. But I did some digging into him and found out that he come from Nicholasville and a bigger area place, and he went to break up a fight out in front of the police department, and he pulled a Kim Potter. He went to pull his taser and pulled his gun and shot the guy.
Oh, geez. When did that happen?
I think it was like 2008, 2010, somewhere around that area.
Yeah.
But I found it out of a lawsuit. It was in an exhibit. So that was interesting.
That is interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I that's crazy. Officers are supposed to be trained and to be able to control themselves and control their actions, even under the most highest of stressful situations. And so, that's crazy. That's
Are
insane.
you familiar with that Kim Potter?
I am not.
No, she was a police officer. It was like in Minnesota or somewhere. She was a training officer. She was training somebody, and they had pulled over a young black kid for an air freshener up in the window in the mirror.
Okay.
And the kid was, getting the boy out, and she was training him, telling him what to do. And they started fussing with that boy, and you heard her holler, "Taser, taser, taser," because she had her body cam on.
Yeah.
And she shot him right in the side with her gun. And the kid takes off, he pushes the gas and takes off, and he crashes. He died. And he crashed the car, and her and the two officers that are standing there with her, she's just freaking out like, "Oh my God, I shot him. I shot him. I shot him." And not one of them go to the car and even check on the kid. They just all stand there like, "Oh my God, what do we do?" I was like, I couldn't imagine. I would freak out. I'd just pass out.
Jesus, that is insane. Wow. Talk about a bad day. What ended up happening though? Did she go to jail?
2 years in prison, I think. Yeah, she went on trial. She was on trial. Yeah.
Well, mistakes can cost you a lot. It can cost you a lot.
Training. I have been through a lot of trainings for different kinds of jobs and stuff. And a lot of it now is digital. You have to get on and do a module. I don't know how long it's been since you've done any kind of training, but they give you these modules that you have to do, and you just get on a computer and you do them.
Yeah.
A lot of them, you're not paid. Now, I used to. I would read everything and take a picture of it, so I'd I'm a crazy academic, but most people are not like that. Like, most of my coworkers are like, "Here, click, 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 click." They don't even pay no attention to none of it. Get to the end and they Google the answer, or, they come up with it some way. They're not learning anything.
Yeah. No, I was going to say most of them just Google it.
Mm-hmm. So
I may
how
have
do
done
we
that
know?
a time or two.
So how do we know who's actually being trained and who's not?
Right.
Yeah.
No, I hear you. And when I say I may have done that a time or two, I said my other job, not when I was in law enforcement. When I was in law enforcement, Google was barely a thing.
How long were you a policeman?
How old was I? I was very young. I was in my early 20s when I started. And then I did that for about 8 years.
8?
Yeah, I had a pretty serious back injury, and I had a friend of mine who was making quite a bit more money doing sales, a sales type job, and not getting as hurt as much as I was, because I had a serious back injury. I had broken some ribs. I had dislocated my ankle. I had hyperextended my knee. I had hyperextended my elbow. all while I was on the job. Like not at one time. These are all different things throughout the time. And it sucked. You know, the back and the ribs and the spine, that was all in one thing. My ankle, this was my fault. I had a Trans Am back in the day. It was a WS6 with a T-top, and I had it parked at the station, and there was hail on the horizon. And so I ran back to the station to pull my vehicle underneath the sally port. So that way, if it hailed, my car would be safe. And so I parked my vehicle and I ran through the this pothole fested parking lot, and I stepped in the wrong way and twisted my ankle, and it literally popped out. And I rolled, and then when I took a step forward, it popped in, but my God, it was so excruciating. And I moved my car and put it underneath the sally port, and I was able to kind of limp. And then I got in. The lieutenant walked out of the back, and he saw me kind of like, at this point, I was struggling to walk. And he got some other officers to help me, and they put me in a chair that rolled, and they took my boot off, and my ankle looked fine. And I was talking to the guys, and then Jeff, he's like, dude, look at your ankle. And I looked down. The thing was the size of like a watermelon. It's freaking huge, swollen, everything. And so they had to take me to the hospital and get checked out, and it was fine. I just had some ligament issues. But I ended up being off for a while for that. The back injury was arresting a dude who kind of ran towards me. And when he ran towards me, I lifted him up like this. A couple of other officers there kind of came in, and they all tackled me and him. I landed first on my back, right on a rock, right on my spine. Yeah, it was pretty bad. And then, I got up, arrested the dude, put him in the squad unit, took him to the station, and my boss had seen everything, and he's like, "You all right?" I'm like, "Yeah." And I kept telling him, I was like, "Man, I landed on something on my shoulder." And all right, I landed on a rock on my shoulder. And I go to the station. He sees that I'm kind of pale or whatever, and he's like, "Dude, you need to go to the doctor. You don't look good." And I was like, I kind of fought him because we worked 12-hour shifts. I had to work the next day early in the morning. This was already towards the end of the day. I didn't want to be at the hospital all night. So I gave in, went in, and they did some x-rays on my shoulder because I was telling them about the pain in my shoulder. They're like, "Well, your shoulder looks fine, but you have some broken ribs." I was like, "I don't got any broken ribs." I hit my chest like this. And he's like, I was like, "Dude, that would have hurt if I had broken ribs." And he's like, "Yeah, we're kind of concerned about that." And so they did an MRI. When they did the MRI, they told me to take, I had to take my shirt off again. But this time, instead of unbuttoning, I just pulled it over my head. And when I pulled it over my head, I saw the stain of the rock, and it wasn't on my shoulder. It was in the center of my back. And I was like, "Whoa." And then I looked in the mirror, and I had this like horrible bruise, and it was just running down my spine. And so they did an MRI or a CAT scan, one of the two. And when they came back, they said that I had like a herniated disc, and it had pinched a nerve. And what they believe was happening was it was shooting the pain that I was having into my shoulder. Because the shoulder pain was remarkably painful. Like it was just like I had like a root canal the size of a fist inside of my joint is what it felt like. And it was just so much pain. And so apparently that's kind of what they explained. That's the only thing they could come up with, I guess. I found out that my spinal cord, I have, I can't think of it, something stenosis where it's kind of thinned out a little bit. And so they really didn't want to do the surgery. So I had to do like physical therapy for like 2 years where they basically electrocuted my back and then tried to like push it into place. And so that's what, yeah. And I was like, screw this. I had a buddy of mine who was just like killing it. And he's like, "I'll hook you up." And I was like, "You know what? Bye. Good riddance. I'm done. And that was like, oh gosh, almost 2 decades ago now.
How well did you do with sales at first.
Not very good.
No, I didn't either. The insurance was that was my very first experience with
Yeah.
sales. I got somebody at Aflac took pity on me and hired me for, of course, 100% commission. I never sold a thing the whole time I worked there. Not one thing. But I was put through, like, I think I worked there about maybe 4 or 5 months, and I went through one of the toughest, most just raw cold calling teachers
Jeez.
ever. I mean, oh, buddy, it was bad. So whenever I finally got into life insurance, it
Yeah.
was a little bit easier. And so I look back on that experience, and I had a rough introduction to sales.
Yeah. Yeah, mine wasn't too great either. I'll be honest. It was so my buddy sold cars. I'm big into cars. I love cars, and so I was like, yeah, I can do this. And at first, it was horrible. The first, I think I had one car sale in the first 2 months, and it was like to my mom, and so but I had to learn it. I had to figure it out.
Yep.
And then now I do like some real estate stuff and buy, rent, rehab, resell, the whole 9 yard, the burp thing. I do a lot of that stuff. And so I have had a couple of businesses throughout this time. So I as much as I miss law enforcement, I would have never been as successful had my injuries not occurred, which believe it or not, my injuries didn't stop, as most of the people know. I had a serious arm injury. I had my Achilles tendon rupture after that. I'm just a walking. Now that I think about it, I'm just. Oh man, I told my wife, God's been trying to call me back for a while. Y'all better watch out.
Well, I have been looking for a house for the last 4 years, and I've not found it yet. So we're gonna keep praying. I'm ready to buy one. I have certain needs and things, and I'm not gonna settle until. But I know that the Lord's got the perfect house. I just gotta be patient.
My wife comes in saying if I want cheese with the wine. That's the missus. And then Miss 101 says the glass officer. Yeah, pretty much. I didn't realize it. When I played, never mind. I was going to say, when I played football, I didn't have that many injuries, but yeah, I did. I did. So what do you have coming up next? Let everybody know what's going on. I don't want to waste too much of your time. It's been great.
Thank you. I've had fun being here. Thanks for having us. We have a show every night. We do a live show every single night. And then I have been kicking out smaller, like little reels and stuff. So anything that doesn't have an intro and an outro to it is just a smaller piece of an already done live. But every evening we have a live show on YouTube. And we talk about just whatever. To be honest with you, I am the least organized person that you've ever met. I wing it completely. Like I try and tell everybody all the time, don't worry about inconveniencing me or anything like that. I am good all the way up to while my intro is playing. If you have to cancel or change or anything, don't be afraid. It will not hurt me one bit because I don't know what I'm doing until I get there.
There you go. Well, I'm not too far away from that as well. Most of my stuff I go based on feel, just kind of talking, conversating, those type of things. For me, I'm going to be talking about the Jack and Lily Sullivan disappearance tomorrow. Are you familiar with that case?
A little bit. We didn't cover it, but Gavin did, and so he filled me in on it.
Yeah. So here's this interesting aspect about it, right? So I've actually talked to the stepfather, the grandmother. I've talked to a few people that are close to Malaya. I've talked to a lot of people that live in the area and that are from Nova Scotia, from very close to where the disappearance occurred. And some of the information that I had found out was that there was this neighbor guy who lived kind of close. And what made me interested about him is the fact that he apparently wasn't too keen on allowing law enforcement to search his property. Now, this guy has a arrest record for burglary and possession of controlled substances and things of that nature, and a very deep history of burglary and theft. And I hadn't named him because outside of my suspicion, because of, well, law enforcement, what they probably would have done, when the kids went missing, and from what I've understand of what they've done, is they would have geofenced the phones that would have connected to the towers in the area. Now, I understand that the cell phone service isn't the greatest out there, but you would still have an idea of certain phones going in within a certain radius, whether it be a few miles or whatever. There's still going to be something there. Yeah. And to me, I was like, this person who's a neighbor who's wasn't keen on law enforcement checking in on their area, they could kind of hide within that area. Like, you would not be able to tell if they were at their house or if they were at the victim's house or down the street or whatever. Excuse me. Now, that's just one aspect of my suspicion. The other thing is there was a pink blanket that was involved in that case where they found it down the road. It was in the opposite direction of where this guy lived. And then, which was interesting to me, was that apparently it was taken out of their trash can, which, if this guy is high on something, and is feeding a habit by stealing things, I don't put it past him to go through the trash. You know what I'm saying? And so you have that aspect going through there. Then you have the fact that apparently here recently, he's now involved himself in the case. Now, I hadn't named him because I don't have anything outside of that. And although I can't, deduce the possibility of him being involved, doesn't mean that law enforcement can't. They know a lot more than I do in this case, right? And so I haven't publicly named him, but I found it weird that now all of a sudden this guy that I've kind of kept my eye on is now reporting certain things to law enforcement. And the crazy thing about it is it's not really making sense. Like, one of the things he said was that one of his friends had seen Daniel, his car, out there where the blanket was found from his house, and it's not visible from there. And so it's pretty weird. It's pretty weird. Some of the things he was saying, the fact that he's kind of come in and he's trying to throw more of a look towards Daniel, which he could be right. I mean, just because the guy is, struggled with drugs and potentially is a burglar, doesn't mean that he may not have saw something. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. But there's some interesting things. I'm going to be putting those things together tomorrow, and looking into that aspect, because I just find it easy. I mean, I find it weird that he all of a sudden he involved himself in the case, which isn't a uncommon thing for somebody that may have had something to do with something.
Yeah, it sure is. Well, that's very fascinating. So we'll have to keep up with you on this. You've got me intrigued on it more than anybody else has been able to do. So.
Well, I appreciate that. Yeah, to me, I was just, I was floored when I found out that he was talking to law enforcement in that manner. I was like, this guy didn't want him checking his property, and now he's trying to redirect attention somewhere else. Mm-hmm. It's interesting. And I'll be honest, when I talk to Daniel, he seems terrified of the guy, like absolutely terrified of him. And he's like, no, I don't know anything about him. I don't. Really, really weird situation. It's a really weird situation, and I don't know. But that's what I'll be talking about tomorrow. I want to say thank you so much, Elizabeth, for joining me tonight.
Thanks for having me.
Yes, guys, go check her out. Link is in the description. If you're watching this on the DT show, very easy to go and click on the link. It'll send you right to her channel. Give her subscribe. Let her know that the DT show sent you. Guys, until next time, we'll see y'all tomorrow. Y'all be safe. Peace out.